Good morning and welcome to this message, continuing the series looking at Psalm 101, which is described as David's oath of office as he began his reign as King of Israel. I'd like to start by telling you a story of someone I know, an experience that happened to them in the autumn. Their dishwasher caught fire, and as a result, their entire house was burnt down. The contents of the house were completely destroyed. This person I know has young children. They're doing some teacher training, and they're based in South Wales. And in the run-up to Christmas, their entire belongings, their possessions were gone. There was complete destruction in the house. It started because of a fault with their dishwasher. Some electrical fault, some small spark had caused this great destruction in the house. Fortunately, they weren't hurt. They were safe and no one was harmed. Possessions can be replaced, can't they? But it is important and a great relief that they weren't physically harmed by the experience. But the stress, the anxiety, the disruption, the loss of memories, of possessions, of treasured things, it caused a great disruption to their lives. And it started by one small spark. Just one small fault escalated to cause great destruction. In James chapter 3 and verse 2 to 5, the whole passage, in fact, talks about the power that the tongue has and the power that our words have. The tongue is incredibly influential to us. And one of is very descriptive language in that chapter from James. And one of the descriptions is about considering how a forest fire is set off by just a small spark. And just to help illustrate the point this morning, I've got a match and a box of matches here. And you can see this may be just a small flame. This is how I start my wood burner at home, in fact. I start my wood burner with just a match and it catches on the kindling, and then I put more logs on and the fire takes hold. Now that's obviously safely contained in my wood burner, but the point that James is making is true, that it just takes a small spark to cause great destruction. I'll safely put it out. And that's the power that our words have, how the influence that our tongues have in our lives. The words that we use and how we talk is extremely important in life. They have the power of life and death. Words spoken in the wrong way can cause great destruction, just like a dishwasher, an electrical good failing in the home, or a word being spoken cause great destruction. And turning back to Psalm 101 this morning, King David recognized this as he began his oath of office, because in verse chapter 5 of that psalm, David says, "Whoever slanders his neighbour in secret, him I will put to silence." What David's talking about here, I think, is gossip. Slander is speaking words, whether they're true or untrue, about a person. And there have been many court cases where people have been accused of slander. But slander spoken in secret, the secrecy puts another dimension on it. And David says, I'm going to silence any slander spoken in secret. I'm going to put to silence slander spoken in secret. I'm not going to tolerate gossip in any shape or form. I'm going to cut it out. It's not going to have an effect in my kingdom, during my rule. Gossip is a very powerful thing. Just like that match that I struck, it sets off a chain of events that can cause great destruction. Just like that dishwasher, the fault with the dishwasher caused great destruction for that family before Christmas. The thing about gossip is that it's tantalizing, isn't it? Tabloids fill their pages with celebrity gossip. There's magazines which contain gossip. Footballers Football fans following teams want to know the latest gossip, the latest rumours about possible transfers for their team. Gossip is tantalising in that sense. It's regarded in society as harmless, a bit of harmless gossip. But gossip is tantalising. Makes me think of the proverb in Proverb 26 and verse 22, where the words of gossip is described as being a choice morsel that go down into our inward parts. Gossip, it makes me think of canapes at some formal function, where perhaps if you're at a wedding reception and before you sit down to the wedding breakfast, you arrive at the reception venue and you have your drinks on arrival and canapes, these little tasty treats, these little delicacies, these little tasters that make you want a little bit more. And if I've been you just ask Amy, I go to when I've been to weddings, and I'll have a bit of that canapé, and I'll try that one, and I'll have another one, and I could have a couple of those. They're just nice little tasty treats. You want more and more and more. They're tantalising. Gossip is tantalising. Gossip makes us feel important, doesn't it? If we hear some juicy bit of news that nobody else knows about, we feel important. We feel we're part of the inner circle. We feel that we've got exclusive rights on some information about someone. Gossip makes us feel important inside. Local magazines, as I say, celebrity columns, celebrity news, people want to keep up on the gossip. Have you heard this? Have you heard that? Have you heard this about someone? You feel important when you have the information. But gossip ultimately is dangerous. Gossip is incredibly dangerous. When I light that fire in my home, when I use that match, I'm careful with what I do with it. I'm careful with where I put it. I've got little people in the house. I know that there's potential there for great danger and for some pain. I'm careful with how I handle that match. And gossip also, when it's out there, when it's spoken, gossip is extremely dangerous. And maybe this morning you have been involved in gossip. You have been on the receiving end of gossip, and you know just how dangerous gossip is. Let me give you a few examples of why gossip is really dangerous this morning. Gossip is dangerous because it breaks trust. Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 19 says, "A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid a man who talks too much." When we've got some news that we want to share in confidence with someone, when that confidence is broken, when we share news in confidence and the person that we've shared it with goes and spreads it like wildfire, it breaks confidence, it breaks trust, it hurts. Trust is a very important commodity in a friendship, because trust takes years to build. It takes a lifetime to build trust, but it can be lost in seconds when trust is broken. And gossip is dangerous because it breaks trust. Gossip is also dangerous because it escalates arguments. Proverbs chapter 26 and verse 20 says this: "Without wood a fire goes out, and without gossip a quarrel dies down." Gossip continues the quarrel. It escalates the argument. It causes greater pain, and it drags out the pain and the division. Gossip causes sides to be taken instead of resolution arriving. Gossip is dangerous because it escalates arguments. Gossip is also dangerous because ultimately it fractures friendships. Friendships are ended as a result of gossip. Another proverb, and we're spending a lot of time in Proverbs on this theme. Proverbs is a great book full of so many great words of wisdom and sayings that are so helpful in everyday life. Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 28 says that a perverse man stirs up dissension, and a gossip separates close friends. How sad is that gossip, speaking about someone behind their back, speaking about someone, breaks a friendship. It separates close friends. When we speak in confidence, in deep friendship, close friendship is built up over many, many years, and it can be ended if there's gossip involved, when there is gossip. These are great warnings to us to take heed to, and these are warnings that David himself was fully aware of. Hence, this is why he set this out in his oath of office, that he said he would not tolerate gossip at all during his reign. Gossip is also dangerous because it increases insecurity. If you've been on the receiving end of gossip, it shakes your confidence. It hurts, doesn't it, when you discover that people are talking and saying things about you behind your back, whether they're true or not. Maybe some deeply personal things are shared publicly. Maybe you've experienced the pain of gossip, and as a consequence, the subject of the gossip, on discovering the gossip, their confidence is shaken. They become insecure. They're less trustful. They may have struggles creating and building new friendships in the future. Gossip is extremely dangerous. And gossip is dangerous because words cut deep. That saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is complete nonsense to me. It doesn't make any sense, because I know from experience, and you do too, that words cut deeply. David knew this too. King David, who was beginning his reign, who'd set out this oath of office that we're looking at as we start this new year, he penned a psalm for when he was on the run from King Saul and hiding in the cave. And you can read Psalm 57, but verse 4 of Psalm 57, it describes the tongue and the words from the tongue being like swords. And David had been on the receiving end of swords, words which had been spoken about him, which cut deeply. If someone took a sword to you, it would hurt, wouldn't it? And that's what our words are like. Our words are like swords, which they don't just nick the surface, but they have the potential to cut really deep, to go deep within us, to the core of who we are, and to really cause great damage. And gossip, being talked about behind your back, has the great potential to cut deep like a sword. Gossip is extremely dangerous. And King David knew this. King David had experienced this. And as he begins his reign, he's determined not to tolerate it in his kingdom. And I think for us, as we move forward in 2021, that for us to set out our stall and to say, I'm not going to tolerate gossip in my life. I'm not going to partake in it. I'm not going to facilitate it or participate in it, would be a great aim for us, a great resolution for us to be resolutely against gossip in 2021. What a great community we would have. What a great church community we would have if we were a community that spoke kindly about each other, that didn't speak words behind people's back, that spoke kindly. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting we have got a serious gossip problem in our church, but I am suggesting that it would be great to be resolutely against it and to not allow it to come anywhere near our door. And for you too, in your own life, in your friendships and your relationships, I'd encourage you, don't tolerate gossip. Understand the damage that it could bring. But to help us in a positive way, how do we, if gossip is like a tasty morsel, if it is like those tasty canapes at a wedding reception, if it is tantalizing and tempting and makes us feel important, how do we avoid getting sucked in, to fall into the trap of gossip, to avoid the temptation to participate? Well, I've got 3 questions to help us considering gossip this morning. 3 questions to help us. First, let me read you Psalm 141 verse 3, because David also needed help in this area. In fact, thinking back to James chapter 3. James chapter 3, verse 2 says that we all stumble in many ways. If anyone is never at fault in what he says, he's a perfect man, able to keep his whole body in check. And both you and I know this morning that there is only one perfect man, and his name is Jesus. Each one of us are imperfect. We're riddled with flaws. We're full of sin. We make mistakes and we mess up. And in our speech and our language, we each can probably look back and we bear the scars of words which we've received, hurtful things which have been said, and words which we've spoken where we look back and we look back with regret. We all stumble in this area. We all make mistakes, and there's grace. God provides grace to help us in these situations and in the things we struggle with. You see, David, as I said, he was on the receiving end of hurtful words, and he wrote a psalm about it when he was in that cave, a fugitive on the run from King Saul. But in Psalm 141, another psalm that David wrote, he said, "Set a guard over my mouth, O Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips." David was asking for God's help in the area of his speech. David was asking for God's help with when to speak and how to speak and what to say. And that's encouraging for us too, that the Bible is full of examples of ordinary people like you and I. God isn't looking for us to be perfect here, but God recognizes that we're human and that we make mistakes. But how do we move forward in this? How do we move forward to avoid gossip and to speak in a way that is positive and helpful? What checks can we put in? What questions can we ask ourselves? Because we know that reckless words, the Bible says, pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. That's Proverbs 12, verse 18. Wouldn't it be great this year if we didn't speak recklessly with words that pierce like swords, but we spoke with words, we spoke in a measured, considered way with words that bring healing. God, give us wisdom, I pray, to speak words that bring healing in 2021. 3 questions to help us as I wrap this up. The first question to help us avoid gossip is, would I say it to their face? Because if I wouldn't say it to their face, it's gossip and it's best left unsaid. That's a great starting point, a great test for us to understand if what we're doing is gossip or not, is to ask ourselves, would I say this if they were in the room? If they were in earshot, would they be able to hear? Because if that would stop you from saying it, then I would suggest it's best left not being said at all. The second question is this: will it build them up or tear them down? Will it build them up or tear them down? Let me take you to Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Like I said at the start of all this, our words are powerful. Like a match that sparks and causes a fire, our words are very powerful. I was reminded this week, in fact, of the power of words at the inauguration of the new president in America. And in that presidential inauguration ceremony, there was a poem that was read by a 22-year-old woman called Amanda Gorman, who was a young poet laureate in America. And she penned these words about America and about where America is at from her perspective. And it was a poem, powerful poem that resonated with many people. And she penned it herself, and you can see it on YouTube and other channels if you haven't seen it already. But it struck me how powerful, again, words are. And if we can use words in the right way, they will be incredible, have an incredibly positive impact in people's lives. This verse talks about building others up, about being of benefit to those who hear them. Let's use words that build each other up and not tear people down. And that's the second question. Will it build up or will it tear down? And the third question for us to ask ourselves is it necessary? Is it necessary? You know, a lot of words are spoken that aren't necessary. A lot of words are spoken that perhaps are best left unsaid because they're just not needed. There's a lot of chit-chat that goes on that isn't necessary. And Paul, in training Timothy in church leadership, wrote a couple of letters to him, which are in the Bible for us. And in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 16, Paul writes to Timothy and instructs him and says, avoid godless chatter, because those who indulge in it will become more and more ungodly. Avoid godless chatter. Stay out of its way. Don't let it come near you. Don't involve yourself in it. That's a great test for us in the words that we speak and in the conversations we have is, are they necessary? Are they really needed? 3 questions, hopefully, that will help you avoid the temptation and the trap of gossip. And in doing so, it will ensure that the spark doesn't fan into a flame that causes great destruction in your life and in the lives of those around you. Would you say it to their face? Will it build up or tear down? And is it necessary? God, this morning I pray for each one of us. I pray for myself and I pray for those hearing this message. Lord, that you, like King David asked, Lord, set a guard over our mouths. Help us in the area of our speech. Help us to avoid gossip. Help us to speak words which are beneficial, which build up, Lord, and which glorify you in 2021. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. God bless you. See you again soon.